Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to another edition, and we got, and we got a haunted washer that's being possessed. So if you hear that in the background, somebody give me the holy water. But yes, welcome everybody. It's tuning in from around the world and coast to coast. If you are not a Bigfoot Outlaw family member, hey, make sure and join the family by clicking the bell and the icon and follow us. It's free. There's no charge. Hello, Michelle and Angela. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing very well. I just blessed the my new vehicle
Right.
and make sure to keep everything blessed. Anytime I'm in a car and I know I'm going to be driving a car and it's going to be mine, I have it blessed. I just have so much better luck with cars when they're blessed.
Yes, that is correct. And we were talking out back. We are launching the Armed Critical Response Academy on Instagram. So please follow us. We just got that up. We're still developing our Instagram account for our sub channels. So please follow us on there. We are going to start filming here shortly. Angela's going to be involved in that somehow. Let's see here. Mary's going to be working on our Instagram account. She's nodding her head yes in the background. So we're going to be doing a lot of different things. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are doing part two, right, Angela?
Absolutely. Haunted house.
Yeah. So, what do you think about when people talk about stuff like this? What goes through your mind?
I think it's more common than what we're led to believe.
Hey, sweetie. Not you, Angela. I was talking to Lou Purpose. Angela's eyes got broke up. Hey, sweetie. But yeah, yes. Hi, everyone. But no, you're right. And, when we talk about things about paranormal activity, uh, the biggest difference between something paranormal and something explainable, right?
hmm
One of the things I talk about is knocks after you speak. What do you think about that?
I have a different variety of opinions. I first try to explain it first and see if it's something that I can explain first. Because I have lived in houses where the floorboards and been warped, and every time you'd walk by it, you'd hear a knock. It's because the floorboard is actually flexing. I've had experience too with um, other natural explanations. For example, a wind's blowing or a fan kicks on and is blowing something, it's knocking something against something. But other times, if you ask for a knock, okay, like you have absolute control of that environment. Say you're in a room, for example, when I was in a room Post-Town Elementary School, which is a haunted location, we're all sitting together in one room. We could see every square inch of that room, so nothing is going to happen unless we see it. And suddenly we would hear knocking, and it would be knocking on all around us in direct intelligent responses. Now that we know was haunted because it was happening in the room. It was a paranormal experience because there wasn't anything visibly that you could explain that was making that sound, but the sound was coming right from the walls right there in front of us, right
And
from
you
around
and
us,
you
right on
said
the
a key
chalkboard.
word. It was what kind of response?
It was a direct intelligent response.
Intelligent response. And so that's really important for people that's tuning in because there are a lot of things that can be explained away, like Angela's talking about. For example, Angela, we can talk about hot and cold spots, right?
Right.
Possible causes for that. We can talk about drafts, insulation issues, air leaks, old windows. What do you think?
Yes, I've had hot and cold spots, and they seem to be more common in older homes that have less of a better seal, less insulation, and a lot more space. Because in older homes, typically you have a lot more attic, you have a
Right.
lot more higher ceilings, right? And so there's a lot more room for air to circulate. They made those houses that way because that was before central heating and cooling, so the ceilings are higher. And so you're going to get those drafts and you're going to get cold spots and hot spots because it was designed for at a time when there wasn't any central heat, so um, it's not evenly distributing air.
Right. Well, but now in some of the unusual cases, right, to where you can't explain away those differences, that's when you can change and monitor the temperature change when it moves from from one location to another,
Right.
or it appears in a specific location repeatedly, or like for you, happens during emotional or spiritual movements when you're picking up stuff.
Right. I will feel hot or feel cold. It depends on that presence of that spirit. I have been in places where um, I've had spirits approach me that have been in fires, right? And I will feel the heat, right? It could be sub-zero freezing out there, and I will feel heat in an unheated basement coming off of the spirit. You could feel the heat of the fire that they had experienced. And it's the same with cold. It may be a very, very hot day, and it's always cold in this one spot, and the cold spot follows you around from room to
Right.
room. And that,
Now, what are
you
some of the way to monitor or tools to take note and to make sure it's not the atmosphere in the room or the AC or the windows? How can you debunk all that?
well, for one thing, you can actually turn everything off and just leave it off. And then you can use an EMF meter. There are cheap meters. I prefer to use a meter like a professional would use, like an electrician might use. And you can actually use that. And the EMF in a room, it will, if there's nothing running and you know it's normal, so you take your normal reading and your nominal reading, and then you'll see a spike. And that spike may be in coinciding with the cold spot or a hot spot. You'll see the spike on there. You can also use just temperature, right? So you'd have a temperature gauge, and when you see the EMF and the hot or the cold spiking at the same time, then that's is a symptom of something paranormal.
It's very interesting you say it because you have the EMF, you have thermometers that you use by lasers to track movement. You have laser grids with temperatures, EMF fields built into it. So you're right. There are numerous tools that we can use. Michelle brings up a good point, Angela. She says, my place has more activity when I'm stressed. And I
Absolutely.
noticed too that I think on the first show we talked about shadow figures, right?
Hmm.
And I noticed shadow figures interviewing people. A lot of them see them when they're stressed. Why is that?
I believe they're actually reacting to your energy, to your emotion of stress, right? They're feeling that pressure. And some of these shadow entities will like to feed off of that. Some of them do, and some of them are just drawn to that. It it seems like if they are a spirit, let's say they're a spirit and they have not crossed over, um, but they are a little bit mischievous or even a little bit curious, they're going to be drawn to your stress. They're going to become more active. It's going to what upsets you is also going to upset them. Right? They feel your emotions. Spirits feel our emotions and they react to our emotions. So, even if places where they don't have shadow people and you just have paranormal activity, and you go in there after a difficult day and there's a lot going on in your life, and you try to brush that off, while the spirits are still going to feel that emotion, and they're going to be heightened and they're going to be more active because they're responding to the stress. They feel the strain that you're carrying around.
It's really interesting because Amy says, I grew up in very large, older homes. They're constantly making noise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that we talk about when we are on paranormal investigations or possibly haunted locations is the foundation settling, is the pipes rattling, is the hot and cold water pipe settling with the temperatures, with the water going in and out, fluctuating. I mean, there's so many different types of debunctions you need to look at. But one of the things that I like to circle back on is that when Angela talks about intelligence, Angela, when you say intelligence, what are you meaning when you say intelligence?
That they're interacting with you, responding directly to your questions, like in responding to your requests. So you say, knock this pattern, and you do two knocks, and you get an immediate response, knock, knock. Then that's intelligent. That's somebody has listened to you and obeyed you, right? Did exactly what you asked them to do. So you would have that response indicating that some intelligence had to figure out how to respond to your knock and imitate it back to you per your request. If it was something random and it was not supernatural or paranormal, and you knock and you say, respond to this, and you may hear nothing or just one knock, it could be something that might not be paranormal or intelligent at all. It just could be a random noise.
So true. Now, what happens, for example, that every night at 2 o'clock I hear footsteps and then I hear a rattle? And it happens the same time every night of the week or every other night or every other week. What do you call that?
Residual haunting.
And how would you explain that to somebody that has no knowledge?
A residual haunting is something that has been repeated over and over and over, and that action is imprinted in that environment, and it just keeps replaying. So there was early on in the type of residual hauntings, many years ago, someone in the 1970s came up with the idea of the stone tape theory, which you have something that has been repeated over and over again, and literally the materials like limestone or quartz could record and capture sound and light, and then it gets played back over and over again. And famously, there was a residual haunting type incident reported in England that nobody has seemed to be debunked when a plumber, when he was working in the basement of an old building in England, saw a, a phalanx of Roman soldiers walk through the wall and into the other wall. And they're actually, all you could see was you couldn't see their feet because they were actually on the old Roman road that was underneath the house. They were marching along that path. And so the Romans had come in there and were regularly marching that path on a routine basis for so long, it was distorting the environment.
It's interesting. That's fascinating. So let's talk about electronical disturbances.
Hmm.
Let's talk about some of the ones that could be, and let's talk about some of the causes. So, for example, lights flickering, electronics malfunctioning, batteries draining, devices turning on and off. We see these in movies, we see them in houses. What are your thoughts?
Well, there are a number of ways you can debunk it, but there's so that you can eliminate and determine if it's paranormal. One of the things that I look for a lot is the solar flares. So you have an X class solar flare as hitting the Earth, that's a solar storm. That's disrupt electronics, it disrupts internet connection. It actually could do a lot of disruption. There's also right now on the Earth itself, the Earth core is changing, is going through the cycle where the North Pole is actually changing position on the Earth, and it's actually traveling quite fast. And that magnetic field in our Earth is actually changing. So that can also create disruptions in electronics as well. And So I look for those patterns. Was there a large solar flare recently? Was there what they call like a magnetic field disturbance that created what they call a dirty electricity phenomenon? It's sort of like extra electricity, and your wires and everything don't know how to discharge it, so it kind of travels around and causes disruptions, and like flashing lights and things like that. And I look for that. Okay, so if that's not it, then for other things like flashing lights, does it respond intelligently? Does if I ask it to flash yes twice in response to a question, and it does it exactly the way I ask, to the for the response I'm looking for, it could potentially be intelligent. Um, there are other types of electrical phenomenon though that seem more extreme than just disturbance. Like for example, when you might get a haunting phone call from the other side on your cell phone,
That's what
a
Amy just said.
landline.
Landline. She says
Mm-hmm.
she has a friend who swears she got a phone call from her deceased mother. Hey, Shelby's grandmother got a call from her husband from the other side from the cell phone. Yeah. It
I've
came
had,
up
yeah.
on her home number on his
Mm-hmm.
cell phone. So, hey, Rita, lovely Rita, hello there. But, but everybody always wants to jump on the bandwagon. And it's haunted. It's not
Right.
haunted. Let's stop and think. What are
Right.
some of the natural causes, like Angie's talking about? Now, like Amy says, and like Andrew says, and like Mary says, hey, some of the older homes, you may have wiring problems.
Right.
Some of the old homes may have aluminum wire. Some of the old homes have different, uh, I'm not an electrician, but some of the old homes have different coverings on them. And then you have power fluctuations, right?
Right.
Surges, that can cause that. Then one of my favorites, electronics. They sometimes they're just faulty.
Right.
Sometimes the batteries just go dead and drain, and it's not supernatural. Okay, but our mind always wants to go to that spot. Oh my God, it's not natural. This is not normal. It's paranormal. Okay, stop. Take a breath. It's hammer time, right?
Right.
MC Hammer. But if you stop and debunk things, and what I always say is you take the totality of everything, right?
Right.
Okay, now I'm smelling things. I had a family member that passed away. Things are being moved. Now I'm starting to see shadow things out of the corner of my eye. Yes, I'm tired. Yes, I may have had a glass of wine. Okay, so I'm going to blow that off. But other people are seeing it. You can't blow that off now that your glass of wine that you had and that you're overly tired, that you work 65 hours a week and your husband or girlfriend's driving you nuts. So you can't blame that. So now it's when you take a step back because and hopefully I'm not speaking for you, but when we go into investigations, this is some of the things we look for. We check the heating and air, the central AVAC. We play with the faucets. We check the water. And when we turn the
Mm-hmm.
water on, we listen to see what the pipes do. Just
Right.
saying. When we open doors, we see if there's any drafts where it backdrafts or suctions. So if I open the front door, the bedroom door slams shuts, right? Uh,
Right.
we check, we debunk all that stuff. Joey says, and then you got Ghostbusters firehouse basement. That would be my basement. But no, but you got to stop and think about that because what happens is when you go to a place to where people think it's haunted, they can manifest things. They can manifest things in their head. They can take the simplest sound as paranormal and overextend themselves and cause paranormal.
Right.
However, if you have the right tools, you also can take an EMF detector and find out that there's exposed wiring or
Right.
high EMF fields in a house that's causing that paranoia. or that sensitivity where you're always feeling like somebody's watching you, or because EMF affects people differently. Or you call Angela and be like, Angela, I'm at this house. I need some help. And for
Right.
1995, for 15 minutes, maybe Angela will give you a reading. But anyways, you can work that out with Angela, because Angela can hone in and be like, okay, just let me figure this out. And Angela can do this remotely. And people don't realize that. And we're starting to branch that out with on the channel, is to help people with other things just besides our show. But when in doubt, debunk, right? Write
Hmm.
down what could cause this noise. Is it raccoons or squirrels in the attic? Does my neighbors have rats? I'm just saying, you'll be surprised. You don't know what a rat sounds like in a wall? Oh man, it sounds like a damn raccoon on steroids. But I'm
I
just
had
sitting there, he's laughing.
I had squirrels on my roof in the apartment that I lived in, and
Thanks,
people would,
Watch
the
Man.
phone, they would say, is there people moving furniture upstairs? And I'm like, I'm,
Right,
I'm on the
right.
top floor, and these are just squirrels running around on my roof.
Or Squatch Man may say you may have a juvenile Bigfoot living up in the attic. But what I'm saying is that you got to debunk things. It's just like I tell people in the cryptid world. Not everything you see out there, right, Rita? Not everything you see out in the woods is Bigfoot.
Hmm.
Just because you see a tree branch that's broken, that doesn't mean a Bigfoot walked by. Just besides, oh my God, I saw one time in a state park somebody, a hiker, and I was like, sir, I was like, what are you doing with your hiking boots off? He's like, man, I've been walking for miles. And he said, I just wanted to feel the grassy green earth underneath my feet. And I thought, boy, you wouldn't believe the chaos you're about to cause up in the next 60 days. But if you know what you're looking for, you can be able to look at that footprint. And Amy says squirrels in the attic and chipmunks. But you can tell that is a Homo sapien footprint, and not a Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, Soak, and whatnot. But you got to debunk things. You have to look at things, because if you go out there and start preaching, oh my God, my house is haunted, and I'm not going to mention names. I dealt with one right before I met Mary, and this lady believed her house was totally haunted. I'm talking like I was ready to call the Catholic Church in before I even got there. And the more and more I interviewed and talked to this individual, I realized that it was an older house. I realized that there was some alcohol abuse. I realized there was some medication and involved, and I also realized that somebody was using a Ouija board.
Right.
Now, with all that said, what is the possibilities of them opening up something is a good possibility. But at the end, it all was manifestation, self manifestation. It was self destruction. Is it was somebody that had to have drama and intention. And this happens. It happens in the cryptid world. It happens in the UFO world. People will fabricate, or let's not say fabricate, self convince themselves that they have evidence or something abnormal happened to them. They would actually convince themselves the incident happened. So when they recount that story, it's believable, and it's hard to decipher the truth from being deceitful. And this is to where people like Angela can come in and be like, oh, yeah, right, Squatch Man?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not feeling that. I'm feeling more of a family. You know what I'm saying, Angela? What's
Right.
your take?
Right. I've actually investigated an apartment that was like that, where this woman was convinced that her apartment was haunted, and went there. And the EMF field from bad worm was so bad, it made your neck tingle when you walked in the door.
Wow.
And I was, I assured her, and there was nothing bad, nothing attached there. There were spirits, but it was completely normal. There was not an act of haunting, right? So I had, and plus she was on medication, strong medication, with the side effect you could have the experience of paranoia, and then you'd have
Right.
the experience of paranoia from the high EMF fields, and they
Yes.
were dangerously high EMF fields. So, and this was a brand new apartment, so this was not wired properly, and so all that she was experiencing, the paranoia she was going, and the patterns and things that she was seeing, it was just all in her head, and the high EMF on top of the medication was a major factor in that.
Well, I'm glad you said that, right? So, emotional or psychological changes. Now, you can take this both ways, right? Like you're talking. If you had sudden anxiety or dread in specific rooms, that can lead up to high EMF fields, like you're talking about. That
Hmm.
can also be paranormal feel and watch. That can also be high EMF. Mood changes. Once again, differentiate between paranormal and high EMF. Now, this is to where I say that the scales start to tilt a little bit is sleep disturbances. This is where I say it starts to tilt because this is where we don't are not able to use like EMF detectors or tools, but our Apple watches and watches that we use and gadgets on our wrist now can monitor our sleep habits. So now you can determine, okay, is this what I'm going through? Is this what am I experiencing? Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, Nilda. This is Angela's doing. It really is. But you also have to understand that this can also come from stress. It can
Right.
also come from trauma, and alcohol. And I can't even talk. It can also come from sleep deprivation. You also have to look at your environmental factors. Once again, do you have high power lines out back or running overhead? EMF. Is your house have a natural stream underneath? Is your house built on quartz or limestone? I mean, there are so many factors that can actually cause paranormal activity, paranormal increased activity, and also emotional effects, right, Angela?
Exactly. And if you're going through a lot of stress, and of course you're just dealing with an awful lot, and you come home, and if that anxiety does not go away, it's like it's always there, and suddenly the things that might seem normal are suddenly not normal, like shadows, for example. You start having nightmares, and you get nightmares that are so intense. You wonder, is something really there? Is something invading? And you'd have to manage your stress. And if you manage excessive stress, let's say you take up an exercise program, maybe you take a short vacation, maybe you actually see a counselor, maybe you go to your pastor or your parish priest for counseling, and your stress goes down and you notice things getting better. Well, then you could say, well, that probably wasn't paranormal. That was probably mainly stress and lack of sleep
Right.
that really was the factor. Or maybe you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, you have this underlying medical condition that is causing your sleep problems
Well,
and all this stress.
let's explore that because I talk about this on my other shows and on other people's podcasts. Katie says, "Good evening and thank you," as this is very important. It is right, and so the most important rule that I think that Angela and I are talking about is that we have to rule out any medical or mental health causes. There are a lot of mental health issues out in the world, and a lot of people are on medication. And we can spin off that on other shows and dive into that a little deeper. But we also have to rule out environmental and physical explanations, right? And when we talk about environmental, we're talking about the foundation, the pipes, the hot and cold temperatures, the window
Well,
gaps.
there's also the chemicals because some older homes will have chemicals in them that you don't currently use because they're toxic. Like
Right,
there may be arsenic, there could be lead, there could be other heavy metals, and those are known to affect your nervous system. That damages your nervous system, and arsenic is deadly. And some arsenic are in some preservatives, like in preserving wood. And you get a hold of that or exposed to that or end up inhaling some of the toxic chemicals that in the past that are in older homes that have now been banned or just not permitted for use for because of their toxic effects, and you're exposed to that and you're getting microdoses on a daily basis. Eventually it's going to have a cumulative effect of that
right.
toxicity, and that toxicity when it comes out is going to manifest. Might manifest in a mental health issue or an underlining other health issues compounding that would bring on a sense of paranormal or even hallucinations, depending on how bad it can get.
Right. And that's why I tell people look for patterns, right? And document. This way, that you're not going crazy. And maybe somebody else in the household will notice some of the other stuff or underlying issues that you're witnessing or going through. I'm understanding stress right now, so I'm rolling out any odd stuff. Right? Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that the mind will do, and Mary and I talk about this a lot, the mind will protect itself. The brain will protect itself from fear, right? And fear tries to amplify any experiences while trying to reduce calmness in your body, right? So
Hmm.
think about that for a minute. Uh, just like when we're out in the woods investigating Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and Squatch Man can attest to this. When you're out in the middle of the woods in the pitch black and you hear the crickets, anything like that, and you hear a twig branch, man, it could be a damn chipmunk jumping from a log to a damn twig, and it breaks. You may think it's an 800-pound gorilla coming after you. It's gonna rip your face off. But what I'm saying, your mind magnifies that to the worst case scenario, right? And Amy says she loves eating paint chips. Amy.
Yeah, so they had led,
Oh, she said never heard of eating kid eating paint chips. Oh
right.
God. Hello, I still upon you live. I can't stay long live right now, but I've subscribed and love your info so far. Thank you. Really appreciate you. Man, we got all kinds of shows coming up. This type of shows, you name it, we got it. So please come back and visit us. Amy says maybe she ate a chip or two, but it is right, and that's the thing. And but fear really does. Fear amplifies things. So if you really are concerned about things being, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Things being wacky, or you think you may have something going on, it's paranormal. Spiritual and grounded protection is the best thing you can do. Ain't that right, Angela?
Absolutely. You say your prayers, you take a deep breath, and just tell yourself you can handle this. And I have been in many situations, extreme paranormal situations, where a lot of people would just um, you know, pass out with fear. I've been in shock before because it's been so extreme and so terrifying, but I force myself to stand my ground and look at the experience, take a deep breath, calm myself, and let me focus on thinking through this rather than fleeing from it. And doing that makes a really big difference because even in when they teach you, and I've been in self-defense situations, I've been in some life-threatening situations. Being able to think clearly, even when you're afraid, is a great skill to have. I mean,
It really is. And this is to where I think that before you jump the gun, and you've done your debunking, ground yourself. Positive intention, boundary setting. You say this a lot. What do you mean by that?
Well, you actually lay down ground rules for people, and because spirits are people, so I lay ground rules for them. And a long time ago, I learned to do this in my 20s, and I actually had another spirit teach me this. So I would have so many spirits coming to me, and right, I couldn't get sleep. They were moving things around. They were touching me all the time. I couldn't really go to school or work because it was just getting so bad. I thought, oh no, this is too much. And so what I did is set boundaries. So I said all the spirits, okay, if everybody in the spirit world you're listening to me to right now, I have to live my life. I have to get sleep. I have to do a job. You're welcome to visit me from this time to this time because I have nothing going on at this time. But outside of these hours, do not talk to me, do not speak to me, let me live my life. So you set boundaries that way. And so it became so much better controlled conversation, so much better communication with spirit. Where, yes, I could still have the paranormal in my life, I could still do investigations, spirits could still come to me, but now it wasn't so overwhelming where they were coming to me all the time and appearing to me in random places that would startle me and kind of upset me and unnerved me, but rather it was more of a controlled approach, and it was respectful. So spirits were respectful to me, and I'm respectful to them, and so you are setting that tone of mutual respect, and you're not letting them overwhelm you. You can say, like, this is my
Right.
house, this is my space, and if you don't want them in your house, you say, sir or ma'am or whoever you have to be, this is my home now. I don't like what you're doing. Would you please leave the home and please go to the light, because I'm sure it's much better over there than what I have here now. You have to set that respectful tone and kind of stand up for yourself and set those boundaries, like you would set boundaries for a child or set boundaries for an adult in a workplace. There is boundaries for a reason. That's for safety.
Now, what does it mean to you when I say keeping your home peacefully and emotionally balanced?
And what that means to me is don't bring your stress home. Don't bring your trauma. Yeah, there's a time and space for that. You can do your meditation, but in a place that you have set up as a solemn sacred space for yourself. It may be a bedroom that you have nice lighting in, and you have your Bible there, or you have your crystals there, or quiet music in it, where you can meditate, and you have a journal, right? So you're keeping a balanced existence. You're letting things out. You're writing things out. Yeah, if you're angry, use the gym for that. But
Right.
don't bring it home with you, because you bring it home and you can actually create problems for yourself if you have abilities. And some people don't realize they have abilities. They come home with their emotions, and they can actually create manifestations in their home. They can even have a telekinetic abilities that their subconscious manifest into moving objects, or even having things appear, but it's actually coming from themselves, from their own inner turmoil. And they have to learn how to manage their stress better, get the counseling they need, and have a better psychological and emotional balance, so that starts to diminish, and then accept the fact that you have abilities and this is where it's coming from.
Right. Now, one of the things I always say too is always avoid fear based content or obsessions,
Mhm.
especially for if you are having paranormal experiences. What's your
Right.
thoughts?
Yes, many times where I've talked to people. Now, it hasn't happened to me that much, but I've talked to other people, people in the paranormal community, people that are paranormal investigators, and they'd also report that if they watch, let's say, a scary movie, and they're feeling intense fear from the movie, right? And then something paranormal will happen afterwards. And it would just be the one time after watching the scary movie. And more than likely, it is themselves and their own fear, if they're watching with somebody else, that is creating that in that environment. You could also have spirits that are always been with them day in, day out, don't normally interact with them, but just want to have a little fun with them as a little joke, as well afterward, just like, you know, like high school kids playing a joke on somebody. So it would be better if you have those effects, or if you have those abilities, and you have that type of experience after watching a terrifying movie. You might want to back off from watching those things, or learn to control your fear better, so that those things just don't happen and you don't have spirits drawn to that, nor are you inviting anything, nor are you creating something out of your own abilities that's manifesting as a paranormal phenomenon in your area, because you're feeling fear from the induced fear from the movie that you were just watching.
Right. Chris is asking, does balance or grounding always mean emotionally, or can it just be physically, just like a grounding mat?
That's a good question. So I have read about that copper is a particularly effective of grounding, because we do actually have a negative and positive charges that our body actually run off of. So in order for a cellular activity has to happen, there's a negative charge and a positive charge in order for it to circulate. It's say your chemicals in your brain. Proteins move along, and the protein is drawn. One has a positive charge, one has a negative charge, and it actually moves the protein through your circulatory system that way. So I was reading that copper, holding on to copper, or having copper in your shoes, or having copper on a blanket. There's some of these grounding effects, and copper in a mat can actually ground you. And what that does, it actually has the natural balance of your natural electrical balance in your body, that helps ground you. And so you can be physically have a good balance as well. But when you have the good balance, let's say you're actually outside and maybe you've touched the earth with your bare feet, and you get the same effect of that balance, it automatically just puts you in a better mood when that happens. So you feel better as a result. So you can be physically grounded, right? You can have that physical balance as well. You could have balance in the home. Maybe you take all your electronics that that emit high EMF, and maybe you shield them so you don't have as much as an effect from it. And make sure that your environment is physically healthy. Maybe you remove things that you're allergic to out of the home. And so it's well balanced, and maybe use colors that have a psychological effect of balancing the mind and the spirit. And from from a while back, because of my art background and when going to college, there was actually a study on architecture, and a belief that architecture can have a profound psychological effect and on the balance. And then you also have the philosophy of feng shui in Japan, where you could arrange your room to be balanced. So there's a lot of ways to be grounded and balanced. Architecture is one of those ways, because it does have a psychological effect. If you have a long, narrow hallway, that has the effect of feeling trapped, or feeling cramped, and it has a strange effect on your eyes too, and how your near perception. But if you have a way that has a little bit more space, it's a bit brighter, you might feel more free and feel more comfortable. So there's a lot to be said for the physical environment and the grounding of the space itself and of your body.
Right, absolutely. One of the things too is many experiences are linked to emotional energy in a home.
Hmm.
Uh, what are some of the ways to reset the environment, Angela?
One of the ways to reset, I like to use incense because of the smell. It's like it's one of our strongest connections to our emotion is our sense of smell. What we smell, like roses, or very pleasant smells. You might burn sage, you might like sandalwood. I like using incense, and incense just brings a calm to the area. And then I just say a prayer, and it brings it out, and I visualize light coming into the environment, coming through me, and then filling the whole environment and just bringing that sense of peace. So when I say a prayer, I would ask, Blessed Mother God to bring her presence and her peace into the home, and you could feel that change in the environment. You can also open up the windows, bring in some fresh air and a pleasant day,
Right.
plenty of sunshine. Make sure you open up the curtains, let plenty of light in, natural sunlight. There are beings who are of the dark that don't like natural sunlight, but it lifts your mood, and it definitely brings a welcoming and cleansing feeling to the home. And you try to bring in the opposite energy into that place. So if I have been in homes where there's been a history of cholera or typhoid, on older homes, right? Obviously, they've had those experiences there, and they had funerals in the homes, right? They had a lot of death of children, especially early on, and you can feel the grief and the heaviness, and it can the impressions that left. It can affect you physically and emotionally. So you can definitely fix up the place, bring in more color, bring in more light, bring in some incense, bring in some prayers, and have a positive attitude and have positive self-talk. It will disperse all that negative energy. Everything that's been built up in the emotions in that space and stored there will start breaking up and start clearing out.
I mean, even music can either make it or break it. Depends on what
Hmm.
type of music you listen to. That's a big difference. A lot of people don't think about that. Is the vibration.
Frequency.
Katie says music bells many ways. Yeah, sage, absolutely. Intentions are huge. Yeah, and people don't think about that. And hopefully some of these tips will help people to decipher. Am I going through something paranormal? If I am, I know some of the things what to do and how to handle it. You can reach out to Angela, right?
Absolutely. And if you want to see more content, I am an artist, and you'd like to see my artwork also, you can just search on Google, Angela Boley, Psychic Portrait Artist. My website, my Facebook page comes up. You can email me. You can leave a comment on my Facebook page, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. Certainly, you're feel free to reach out to me.
Well, so what we're going to do for the next show?
I was thinking for the next show, the auditory phenomenon, right? Voices, disembodied voices, those phone calls that you get from spirits, focusing on that, because most people, more than they see apparitions, they experience the auditory phenomenon, the disembodied voice, phantom phone calls, things coming through their electronics, hearing their own voice in their home, calling back out to them, or hearing a relative is somebody that's not there, but they're still alive, but you hear them in your home.
Maybe, just maybe, one of us will do a live EVP. I can't even say it. EVP.
Yeah,
EVP session on the air. Quit it, Rita. Yeah. Yahoo,
yes,
yo yaha. Hello there. Yes. Rita, lovely Rita's laughing.
ringing in the ear. I've heard phantom music before. Have you had paranormal? The earth, or I would say spirit world music, like a
Ladies and
harp.
gentlemen, see her
I've woken up.
footsteps. That is not paranormal. It's just Rugrats. So, anyways, but yes. But no, but yeah, let's do that. Let's have some fun. Maybe I'll get out one of my coffins.
Ooh, I did have a really good EVP I posted on my Facebook page too. I was so surprised. It was a new equipment that is in a frequency that I've never tried before. So it has a much broader range. It actually records the sound of EMF. And I got a direct, intelligent response that was so clear. I don't even have to tell you what it says. You just listen to it and know what it says.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. Next show. We're going to do some live EVPs. And maybe we'll have some examples if I don't have a heart attack. What happens if we get something spooky? Mary's just looking at me like, oh. But
I'll handle it if it's something spooky. Trust me, I've had enough.
He's like, that's okay. Well, the sad thing is, Angela can see it coming before I do sometimes. So that's the bad thing. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not a family member with the Bigfoot Outlaw, please join us. The sub channel. Yes, the sub channel. We will be filming starting in the next couple of weeks. Our Instagram account for that one. If you're into anything, well, I'm not going to share that one, but I'll share this one. Armed Critical Response Academy, Bigfoot Outlaw, ACRA sub channel. It is coming. We found a location we were filming in Tennessee at a couple of gun ranges, so we're excited. We're excited. So not only Rita says, "Run, Mary," and Joey says, "None of that PF that anymore, Chris." That I know, right? But yes, ladies and gentlemen, tune in. And for our other shows, it's fascinating at the Bigfoot Outlaw Network. Angela, reach out to Angela, and man, you would not believe some of the things that she can do. KD was thinking, ringing, and then left, right, and shutting up both. As what confuses me? Left, right, left. See, you got it there, Katie. Joey's like, good night, everyone, Nelda, and from coast to coast around the world. Godspeed. We'll catch you on the next show, everybody.